Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be eventually every man gets bored of his woman. So I've got an email here from a guy. I believe I did a coaching session, I think it was probably around like last summer with this particular guy. And the details are kind of hazy on his particular situation. But if it's the guy I think it is, I do remember he was way over pursuing this woman. He dated her for a couple of years, 2, 3 years, and may not have been that long. Maybe it was a year and a half. And she basically blew him off, broke up with him, and then she started dating somebody else. And then they didn't date or talk for, I don't know, like a year, year and a half. And then they ended up running into each other again and started seeing one another. And so as he was telling me the story of how they first met and started dating, and then how things progressed throughout the relationship, he was always doing like 70 to 80% of the pursuing the whole way through. And it's like whenever I hear that and I'm doing a phone session with somebody, I know it's just a matter of time before they get friend zone, or the woman says I'm not feeling it, or there's not enough chemistry there, that kind of thing. And obviously that's what ended up happening. So what was interesting is that I had a hard time pointing out to the fact that the guy was not following what 3% Man teaches, what he had learned in the book. And like he couldn't see that he was way over pursuing her. It was really hard for him to accept that and admit that. And that was a big part of what was causing her to lose interest and then eventually dump him because her feelings were gone, date somebody else. Like within a matter of weeks of them breaking up, she was already in a relationship with somebody else. And then obviously he started dating her again, but he was having the same problems. He was just over pursuing. He's a very successful guy, but he just has a big ego that has a hard time admitting when he's doing something wrong. And so this is the theme of the video. Eventually every man gets bored of his woman. I use this a lot when I'm doing phone sessions with guys that are behaving this way, because it's like you got to think of how would you be treating her if you were bored with her, if you were already tired of her, if you were maybe even thinking about breaking up with her, or unsure if you wanted to continue dating. Because that vibe, that mindset can help a guy shift out of it and back off enough to where he stops smothering the woman that he's dating. So I got a quote that I wrote, and then we'll go through his email. The quote says, "Men should focus on becoming the kind of men that women notice due to their success and competency at life and getting what they want. Men who want to improve their social lives and pool of potential dating prospects should be focused on creating a great life and lifestyle for themselves. Being successful at creating a life and lifestyle you are proud of is the hallmark of a competent, successful, and desirable man. This will put you in a position of choice with women because they will be seeking your attention and validation, hoping to win you over." And so obviously the guy that wrote this, that would behoove you to be focused on that. Because you'll see here in a second, this guy's just totally obsessed and focused on where he stands with her. And that's what we went through when I did the phone session with him. He says, "Hi, Coach. I'm wondering what the heck is up with my girlfriend. We've been dating now around 5 months, and I have noticed that lately she sometimes goes somewhat cold for what appears to be no reason. I'm not sure if it's because I'm discussing our relationship when we're together. Sometimes I say things like, 'I'm certain we'll grow old together,' when she asks me if I think we will." Well, just the fact they were a couple of lines in your email and you're focused on the relationship, that's obviously a big flag. And the fact that you're going, "What the heck is up with my girlfriend?" means you're too obsessed on where you stand with her. And an example I like to use a lot because it's so familiar for most people, especially just having gone through the holidays again, is the movie from 1946 called It's a Wonderful Life. It's black and white, it's old, it's kind of hokey in ways. But what I liked about the movie is that you get to see this love story develop from like these two characters when they're a little boy and little girl, and the little girl has a crush on the boy. Little boy is a couple of years older, and she kind of has it in her mind that I'm gonna marry him someday. I'm gonna have his babies, and that's kind of like her theme, and she kind of schemes and plans the whole movie to make that happen, and that obviously is what happens in the movie. It's a beautiful love story, but the thing that you notice is Jimmy Stewart's character is not focused on that at all. He doesn't want anything to do with staying in the little town. He wants to move away. He wants to go see the world. He's got big dreams, big goals, big plans, big things he wants to accomplish. And obviously, he's enamored with this beautiful woman now because she's a young woman, and they start spending time together, and then the chemistry happens and sparks. They just did a good job of kind of naturally seeing how they looked at one another, how they got close, and being close, that the sparks start flying. Because it's very rare to see that, especially today's movies. But the theme you notice is that Donna Reed's character is always seeking the attention and validation of Jimmy Stewart's character. And she's a good woman, good wife, always kind, always submissive, and always on his team. And that's the kind of thing you want. Whereas, like, when you read an email like this guy, he's behaving like a little schoolgirl that's got a crush on somebody. And he's wondering why he doesn't know where he stands with her. Number one, a man should not be focused on that because that's feminine energy. A man should be focused on achieving his grandest goals and dreams, just like the quote says. So back to his email, he says, or if it's the fact that she does 100% of the pursuing and I just focus on growing my business empire and band. Well, quite frankly, that's not really accurate. That's what you tell yourself. You tell yourself that you're following the book, but obviously having done a phone session with you, that's not the case, and I'm pretty sure I pointed that out to you, even though you had a hard time accepting that. He says, I've been leaving cards once a week, and lately I have surprised her with some super sexy heels. So I believe what he's referencing is sometimes she would complain that he never makes any effort to reach out to her. So he'll send her a card or he'll call her out of the blue or text her out of the blue. But the fact that now he's sending a card once a week, it sounds like he's becoming predictable and boring, doing the same thing over and over again. That's not what I taught him to do. I taught him to mix it up, but he's not listening. So how would this guy be acting if he was bored of her? He wouldn't be in such a rush. He wouldn't be worrying about all these things. He's, like I said, his whole mindset is, where do I stand with her? Is this going to turn into a long-term relationship? And that's part of what led to him getting dumped the first time around. He says, it seems like when I'm somewhat affectionate when we're together, she goes a little cold for a few days afterwards and might not text me till the day after we see each other. Well, you got to remember, he was already with this woman once before, and he overpursued her to the point where she got turned off. And so this is his weakness. He's overpursuing because he's insecure about himself, and he doubts what he brings to the table. And obviously he's obsessed with this girl and really into her, and he got rejected the first time around, and rejection tends to breed obsession. So a lot of the things that turned her off and led to him getting friend-zoned and blown off for another guy eventually, he's still exhibiting those same behaviors even though he might not think so. Because the email is, hey, I didn't do anything wrong. What's with this girl? And that was kind of the same vibe that he was trying to give me when I was doing a phone session with him. It's like, you can bullshit yourself, but you can't bullshit me. I can see right through it. Because all I got to do is look at what you're doing and saying and what she's doing and saying, and that tells me everything. He says, when she does text or call me, she seems a little cold, almost like she's upset that I haven't reached out. Might be my thinking. Well, if she's acting cold and we know you have a problem with overpursuing and calling and texting too much, and in the previous line you just said, it seems like when I'm somewhat affectionate when we're together, she goes a little cold for a few days afterward. In other words, you're communicating constantly that you're way more into her than she is into you. And then she backs off. But what's going on here is he's trying to absolve himself from any blame and say it's not his fault. It's somebody else's fault. Or maybe there's something wrong with what I taught him or what's in the book. But he's overpursuing. Because he just said when he's affectionate, she gets cold to him. But notice what he says next. He says, but when I'm somewhat stoic and indifferent when we're together, she is hitting me up within an hour of seeing each other telling me how in love she is with me. And he says confused with a big exclamation point. It's like, it's pretty simple and obvious. You're still doing the same things wrong that you were doing when I did the first phone session with you 6 months, 8 months ago, whatever it was. But it's like, you got to let women do most of the calling, texting, and pursuing. Again, like Jimmy Stewart's character, he's not focused on a relationship. If he's resistant to that, he pulls away from anything to do with settling down and getting married, because to him, part of that would mean that's the end of his dreams. But the reality and the tone of the movie was that the town needed him. He was the main man in town. He was really a big reason why that town, him and his family and their savings and loan business, were a big reason why the town had actually grown and flourished so much, because they had touched so many lives, even though he was trying to escape from that, if you will. But he still did what was necessary, because his father dies suddenly in the movie, and then he has to take over. His brother's in college, and he's like, okay, when my brother graduates, he's going to come back here, run the family business, and then I'm going to go off to college and get to see the world and do all those things. And then what ends up happening is his brother comes back a war hero. He's married. He's got this great job opportunity out of town. And he's like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to stay here and keep running the business, running the family business, because everybody depends on him for their jobs and their livelihoods. It's a really cool story. But the point being is that he can tell when he does things right and he follows the book, 3% Man, which you can read for free at understandrelationships.com. It works. And then when he doesn't, when he starts acting like a woman, she becomes unsure, she becomes distant, and so he's vacillating back and forth. And that's what's getting in the way of her falling head over heels in love with him, is that he does things right, she comes in closer, he gets too eager, too overzealous, because deep down he doesn't feel like he's good enough for her. And then he starts chasing her out of his life again, to where she starts losing interest, becoming unsure, not as open to getting together. It's just interesting how we tend to bullshit ourselves, and we ignore what we're doing, and we tell ourselves it's something else because we can't accept the responsibility that we fucked it up or we made a mistake. And a big part of being successful in life is recognizing when you're making errors so you can learn from them. Because if you don't learn from your mistakes, you'll keep making them and you'll keep experiencing pain. And typically the pain gets worse and worse as the years go on, until you have some kind of crisis where you recognize, okay, and you're finally able to admit to yourself that the way you've been showing up is wrong. But the best mindset is, how would you behave if you were bored with her? If you're feeling insecure and nervous and worried about where you stand, and you want to text or you want to call to find out where you stand with her, how would you be acting if you were bored with her? You'd be glad you weren't hearing from her. You'd be like, I have some peace now. I can get some things done that I want to get done. I can go hang out with the boys. I can maybe do a little traveling. I can go hang out and catch up with my family, or maybe my friends that I've neglected. Maybe I can finally have time to clean out my garage, or reorganize my shop out back, or my man cave, or whatever, or build my man cave out, whatever it happens to be. How would you act? How would you behave? What would you say? What would you do? What would the tone of your voice be if you're kind of bored already? Because the reality is, the longer you're with somebody, you're going to get bored with her. And you know what? She'll get bored with you too. It happens in relationships. It's part of the ebb and flow. And that's why having healthy time and space away from each other helps create that desire again. But, this guy, if he doesn't cool it, if he doesn't knock it off, this chick who, quite frankly, from everything he shared, I was thinking, she belongs to the streets. But hey, he really cares for her, and he wants to keep dating her, because the idea was they were together for like a year and a half, and she started dating somebody else within a matter of weeks of them splitting up, and she was in a relationship because he wanted to get her back after she had dumped him, and then he found out she was taken. And now she's back, and more than likely what will happen is her interest drops. She starts entertaining invitations from other guys. And so at the end of the day, that's how she behaves when her interest is low. She talks to other men. She invites attention from other men. Me personally, that's not the kind of woman I'd want to be getting serious with. And there's a lot of women that behave that way in the world, unfortunately. But guys think, hey, I'm going to be different. I'm such a good guy, she wouldn't do that to me. So, anyways, if you haven't read 3% Man, you can read for free at understandrelationships.com. You can also read Mastering Yourself for free. All you got to do is subscribe to the email newsletter. If you've got a problem or a challenge that you'd like to get my help with, go to understandrelationships.com, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and book a coaching session with yours truly. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.